Welcome to TMZ Live. Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
Okay, here's what's going on with Diddy. So the court actually adjourned early today, and there are 45 prospective jurors. Now, what happens is the next step is that each side gets a certain number where they can just say, we don't want him. And you don't have to give a reason, you just, we don't want him. Each side gets to sort of knock people down for that. That's a really important thing because it requires strategy. Who do you want? What 12 jurors and 6 alternates do you want? And it takes some time.
And both sides will be working, actually, as we speak, have begun working on that.
It was supposed to happen today, but the defense said, look, we need some time. And the judge said, look, we will be dark tomorrow. We won't have
So Thursday,
court
there will
tomorrow.
be nothing going on in court.
On Friday, they're called preemptory challenges. On Friday, they will do that. They will select the jury. And then on Monday, the jury will be officially sworn in and the opening statements will begin.
Right. And the final jurors that they put in the pool today, interesting. It's always interesting to hear I'll say, the excuses that people put forward, hoping that they don't get selected. And then you always wait to see whether the judge goes, okay,
I'm buying
you're
it,
excused, or I'm not buying
it.
Right. Some very interesting ones, including Star Wars. Star Wars came into play in the court today as one juror said he was just at home. He said he's not working and he's at home watching Star Wars. Actually, he said he was binging, and the judge said, "Binging? What do you mean? What do you mean you're binging?" He said, "Oh, I'm just binging. I'm watching Star Wars." And the judge said, "Okay, you're watching Star Wars. What?" I think the judge thought he meant the movie, and he said, "No, Andor." And then he admitted, he's like, "I'm not working right now. I'm really kind of lazy." I don't know if the judge. That doesn't sound like a good excuse. Do we know if the judge took that one? He kept him in. Yeah, I mean, you're asking to be put on the jury at that point.
I'm kind of lazy. I
don't have a job, so it's not like
I'll do a 4-week trial, but I don't think I can do an 8. It just gets boring.
Yeah, I mean, he was honest at least. There was another prospective juror who admitted it came up, and clearly the attorneys the defense had seen this on his social media. That he had retweeted something related to Diddy. So the judge asked him about it. And he said, do you remember doing this? And he said, no. And he said, no, I don't, because I was doom scrolling. And then the judge said, the hell's doom scrolling? What's doom scrolling? And he said, I was just jumping around on the internet. So the judge is learning some things here about social media.
Well, the judge also, I think this is actually really interesting. So this judge, I was a little surprised at this. I have a feeling he's connecting more with the young people in the jury. This is the judge. Backpack,
Judge Samaria.
Earphones, headphones, and
I'd only seen pictures of him.
Tennis shoes.
I'd only seen pictures of him on the bench with his robe on, and he's just, I don't know, just seemed older.
But now that you look, it's like he's 45 years old, and the reality is, there are a lot of judges who are in their 40s who are on the federal bench.
He just looks like any other commuter.
He does. I mean, tennis shoes and backpacks and all.
Headset on.
This guy's a regular commuter who grew up in the 90s. He's exactly my age. He's probably very influenced by the music of the 90s, which was suffused with Puff Daddy and Bad Boy Records. So undoubtedly, he knows a lot about the defendant in this case, and he's going to bring in some of his own sort of experiences to the trial. I mean, I'm sure he'll be very professional, but that's got to be in the back of his mind. He knows Puff Daddy.
Now, I'm going to get a little personal here, that I have a podcast, and one of the things that happened in court is we now have a new listener.
We do.
That judge.
Yes. Judge Subramanian said that he will be watching and listening to the Two Angry Men podcast.
But not necessarily because he's a fan.
No, he's watching and listening because of something that your co-host, Mark Garagos, said on the last week's episode
of Two Angry Men,
where he referred to the prosecutors, the 6 female prosecutors, as a 6-pack of white women.
That did not sit well. But the prosecution actually sent a letter to the judge and fired it off and said, Garrigus is associated with this case. He's been consulting. And how dare he say something like this? And the judge agreed.
Yeah, the judge said, you cannot cross the line like this. And that's when he said, I will be watching. I believe Mark said something like, thanks as long as you subscribe.
The word was kind of wrong, Mark.
Right.
But the judge was essentially, the judge was threatening him with contempt, that if he made a personal comment like that, which the judge said crossed the line, I think the judge was saying prosecution will probably ask for make a contempt motion, and the judge might agree to actually cite Mark.
Just to be clear, the judge was not promoting your podcast.
Well, at least
intentionally. Not intentionally. But thanks.
Yeah, look, there's an element of this that is very entertaining. It is your podcast, and you speak openly about this case, and so does Mark Garrigus. But being called to the principal's office in the middle of a trial and being told, like, I'm going to be listening, it's not exactly an endorsement of the podcast. It's going to make Mark probably a little nervous to be talking on the podcast.
Well, that's what I want to see. We haven't done it this week yet. I can't wait to hear what he does this week. Believe me, I have no idea, no control over that.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of you talking this week.
Let me tell you something. I've known this guy for decades.
He's going to push it.
It ain't going to be just me talking.
He's going to push it.
Promise you.
Hi, Nikki NYC. In my personal opinion, I think when it comes down to the all-female prosecution team, I think it's a plus and a negative at the same time. For one, when it comes down to feminism, I feel like if they can successfully prosecute and win this case, it's going to be a plus for them. However, with the predominantly jury that's like all male, predominantly male, I think it's going to actually backfire with the intentions of men nowadays. And this is just my opinion, where men are just like, okay, we want to be the head of households. We want to be the decision makers. I feel like if there's a predominantly male jury pool, it's going to make it a little bit difficult for them to actually prosecute. This is just my opinion.
Well, it's interesting because we'll see what the composition is, and we should know Friday.
We remember all the people that we've talked about so far are just in the pool. They are not the actual jurors.
I do want to mention one other quick thing. They can't find witness number 3 still. This is apparently an ex-girlfriend of Diddy's who was one of the alleged victims. And prosecution can't find her.
Right. Her attorney is trying to find her, and her attorney has said that she may not be willing to come and testify anyway. So
we'll see. Interesting. Okay, we're moving on.
Yes, to Tom Brady, who has something he wants to testify to. That Netflix roast he did almost a year ago, almost exactly a year ago.
Which he loved at the time.
At the time, he loved it. Everyone who watched it loved it, said it was really one of the funniest productions that was put together all last year. And now Tom has some regrets. He was on Logan Paul's podcast and opened up about what happened after the roast, not immediately after. He was fine immediately after. He was partying, had a good night. But the next day, things were a little rough with his children.
I do understand, like, for my kids, that was really hard. And I didn't realize, like, there's some things the parent up and you don't realize until after, like, and we're not perfect parents. When you were in that moment, in that theater that night at the Forum, like, it was electric.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like, we got done. Everybody was on cloud 9. And I think that moment, I'll never forget, and then I'll never forget when I talked to my kids the next day.
Oh, man.
And I was like, I felt like, a stake through the heart, understandably,
Were they mad, sad?
They're protective of their mom, of their dad, of everybody, they're just, what was the point of that? Why did you do that? So it's just, you live and you learn.
I said good on Tom Brady for admitting this. And I agree, Charles. I think the show was hilarious. It was so funny. And there really weren't any jokes about the kids. All the comedians made an agreement with one another that we were going to let the kids get a reprieve here, that they didn't deserve to be brought into this. But the reality is, for the kids, their mom was made fun of and their dad was made fun of, and it's hurtful to them.
And her now baby daddy
right,
was
who
made
they
fun
have
of.
a relationship with too, Harvey, because, and I know you might laugh at this, but obviously Joaquin is the kid's jiu-jitsu instructor for a couple of years now. They've spent a lot of time with him. They went on vacation with him. So for the kids to have to listen to that, and I'm sure then their classmates at school making jokes about it, I can understand how that'd be tough on young kids.
Hi, I'm Pravi from Florida, and I remember watching that roast, and the jokes were relentless. They did not hold back at all. So I can completely understand why he would, regret it and how it would affect his kids, especially if you're just basing it on the comments that was made about his ex-wife. And as he said, parents definitely make mistakes. So in hindsight, he probably would have changed some things around if he knew what was to come. But it makes sense that he would regret at least some portions of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he said we were on cloud nine, so he still has fond memories of doing it. The fallout, yeah, he regrets. Taking a break.
All right, when we come back, President Trump's ban on transgender military members. The Supreme Court says he can move forward with this plan, so who's next? Could it be gays in the military? We're going to discuss this with Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire when we come back. A big victory for President Trump's administration this week as the Supreme Court said that his ban on transgender members of the military, he can go forward with that.
It's constitutional.
And that was shot down, the ruling of a district judge, a federal judge who said that this was violating the Fifth Amendment, but the Supreme Court said, nope, go ahead. So with that feather in his cap, what's next for the military? Who knows, right? Because President Trump has a lot of ideas that he's,
well, I will say,
having more success with.
I will say that will he revisit gays in the military? Because it seems like that's where the road is leading. Right. So let's get into it.
Yes, joining us right now is Michael Knowles. Thank you, Michael. Of course, you know him from the Daily Wire, and he is joining us once again. Welcome back, sir. How you doing?
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, so let's get into this. I think to talk about going forward, we have to understand where we are. Why a transgender ban in the first place?
Well, because the transgender identity is a very serious medical condition that is not in accord with reality. Obviously, a man can't really become a woman. And the people who believe that they are the opposite sex have all sorts of psychological and other medical problems that go along with it. So they have much, much higher rates of depression, anxiety, suicidality. The people who undergo the hormone treatments and the affirming care, so-called, have all sorts of bone problems and health issues that come with it. And then broadly, the American people voted for this. It's not like Trump hid the ball at all when he was campaigning. He was campaigning in large part on the excesses of the trans ideology. But you say we got to look where we are.
But really, I mean, everybody's now saying they voted on everything Trump is doing. They voted, come on, Michael, they voted on the economy and they voted on immigration. And we both know that.
The reason that...
one of the top issues was common sense. And the common sense issue, the trans ideology, I tell you, I've talked to a ton of Republican politicians around the country in private rooms. I say, what was really working for you on the trail? And they said one of the big issues was this trans ideology. In fact, I think that's what saved Senator Cruz's seat down in Texas from Colin Allred. But the other thing you got to remember, guys, is you say we got to figure out where we are now. Remember, trans-identifying people have only been allowed to serve in the military since the tail end of Obama's second term. For almost the entirety of Obama's term, Barack Obama banned trans-identifying people from the military, I think for good reason. Then Trump flipped it, and Biden flipped it back.
I have no doubt that what you said is true, that when you spoke to people on the campaign trail and they said that this was working, and I think that's part of, I think President Trump would describe it as the brilliance of his campaign, that he took an issue that really does not affect that many people and turned it into this huge culture war. The latest number from the Pentagon, transgender troops make up 0.7% of the military, active and selected reserve. And yet we have to make this big of a deal of it. That's what has been odd to me about this, making this such a hallmark of the administration.
Well, look, it's not just about the people who identify as trans. First of all, we want to help those people. So to help them, you don't want to lie to them. You don't want to encourage them to undergo procedures that will ultimately harm them, according to the largest data sets. But the thing you got to remember is, even if you say only a tiny proportion of the population identifies as trans, that affects pretty much everyone. The women who voted for Trump because they don't want men going into their bathrooms,
that number, Michael, was
they have the right
about
to their own bathrooms.
That number was not about that was about the military we were talking about.
Sure, but it's what's reflected in the military is reflected in the broader population. That's why I'm explaining. That's why people voted for this. When we're talking about the military, though, it's all the more important because the purpose of the military is to fight and kill our enemies, okay? The purpose of the military is lethality and readiness. And so the woke and politically correct social engineering that goes on where you're going to put a guy in a woman's bathroom, where you're going to spend a ton of taxpayer dollars.
Well, what does that have to do with who can shoot a gun? I mean, come on.
Fit and healthy.
Look, I was in the military, and so what does that have to do with their inability to fire a weapon?
Well, because the people who undergo these trans procedures make themselves much less physically fit.
Tell that to Caitlyn Jenner.
I happily would tell that to Bruce Jenner. He's not a woman. He's less physically fit than he used to be.
But there are transgender people who are serving in the military now and very successfully. And so clearly they're not having physical issues.
Why do you think Barack Obama didn't let trans-identifying people serve into the military until the very last moment of his second term? The answer is obvious. It's a serious mental illness, and we want to help people to deal with it. And the way we're dealing with it now is to harm them because we're giving them cross-sex hormones that are bad for their bodies. But obviously, when we're talking about national security and military fitness, putting hormones that don't belong in your body into your body, giving yourself bone disease, giving yourself earlier death, affirming conditions that are going to make you much more likely to be anxious and depressed and suicidal, that is not helping anyone. And we're not even talking about the bathrooms.
So we're not going to solve that. But let me ask you this. Now that the Supreme Court has opened that door, is the next step to ban gays in the military? I mean, Trump could make the argument that what do you do with sleeping quarters and all this other stuff? So is that the next step? Or are we going down that road?
Well, I think that would be very hard, especially for the Navy, obviously, given, hundreds of years of tradition there. But even when you look on a shorter scale, in the military broadly, homosexuals have been permitted to serve in the military for decades.
No, they haven't. I mean,
it was under Clinton.
Are you kidding? Clinton's policy was don't ask, don't tell.
It's not.
That wasn't permitted. I was in the military. Dude, I was in the military,
Meaning you
and I'm gay.
out.
I was in the military, and I'm gay, and I hid it while I was in the military.
But you got to remember then, as I'm sure you do, the purpose of Don't Ask, Don't Tell was not to punish homosexuals or anything like that. It was actually a liberalizing policy that said, hey, we're not going to kick you out of the military for being homosexual.
Didn't go over well.
Well, I don't know. It worked pretty well for a long time. Then finally, the policy was changed under Barack Obama. Again, we're talking relatively recently.
Is it going to go back? Because now the door is open.
I don't think there's any risk of this. In fact, I think that Trump's critics are going to have to try to make this about gays in the military or any other issue that is not really being controversial right now, because they know that telling people who have severe mental illnesses who think they're the opposite sex that taxpayers don't want to fund their transition surgeries, they know that that is so popular that the Democrats are going to get nowhere if they focus on that.
You continually said as a statement of fact that people who are transgender have severe mental illness, and that's not necessary. That is someone's opinion. I don't know. It seems like a blanket statement you cannot make
No,
fairly.
it's a true opinion. I mean, it continues to be listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Psychology, though they've changed the wording a little bit. But obviously,
well,
if you're
everybody,
a guy,
but a lot of
think
people,
you're the opposite sex, that's a mental illness.
A lot of people have all sorts of things, and it doesn't mean. Look, we're never going to solve this, but a lot of people disagree with you. We will not solve that here today.
No.
But
maybe not. I guess not. I mean, I'm not even saying it as an insult or anything. You're right. People have all sorts of quirks and all sorts of problems. I'm just saying, as a statement of fact, if you believe something about yourself that is completely contrary to reality, if you're anorexic, say, you're a really skinny person, you think you're really fat, you have a problem with your perception. And so you want to help those people and work through it. But when we're talking about military readiness, we also shouldn't have severe anorexics in the military. We shouldn't have people who are a little off.
Yeah, but they may not have a problem with perception once they actually undergo the change. So the problem with perception is if they're trapped in something they don't think they should be trapped in, and then it's a problem.
No, that's the theory. But the problem is that now we have the largest data set. A big study on this came out in 2019, and it shows that the promises that were made, that once you undergo the transition, you're going to feel better and not be depressed, not be suicidal, none of that came true. In fact, it all stayed the same, and anxiety went up. So we need some other way to solve it.
We're out of time, but since you're wearing that coat, you write a treatise on it.
I think maybe I'll give a long lecture, and maybe in a British accent. Who knows?
Okay, Michael.
All right, thank you, Michael.
We really appreciate you coming on.
Good to see you guys. Thanks.
All right.
See you soon. Okay, that was a lot.
Yeah. That's one way to put it.
We are taking a break.
All right, when we come back, the Beckham family feud. David and Victoria, are in a feud with their son, Brooklyn, and his wife. Well, now some people are extending an olive brand, except someone is being called toxic. Who is it of those four? We'll tell you when we come back.
TMZ's got every freaking thing. Big celebs, big stories, big events.
Justin Timberlake made Portland kids' dream come true by joining a bike bus ride. And they always listen to Justin Timberlake.
Cry me a river when they fall. Yeah, right.
It's TMZ.
Before we go any further,
I knew you were going to do this.
because it's been bugging me.
I know.
Because it's been bugging me.
I literally was just thinking of it as you did this. It's so funny.
Normally,
and we haven't talked about this.
We normally
were just
have an
standing
issue.
Here silently.
We normally have an issue of we both wear black shirts or sometimes blue shirts. This is the first time it has been this shade that we have. I literally put it on. I was like, well, he's definitely not wearing this.
How can two people come up with this independently? This is nuts.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's also nuts is this feud in the Beckham family that David and Victoria have been estranged, essentially, from Brooklyn and his wife, Nicole.
I would call this a family war.
It does seem like it's a war. And the war is really over Brooklyn's brother, Romeo, and Romeo's girlfriend. Brooklyn and Nicole have a problem with, not really with Romeo, but with the girlfriend.
I would also argue,
So-
I think Victoria has a problem with Nicole.
That
Independently.
Absolutely, and I think that is the thing that's going to stop them from mending fences too quickly here.
This is Harry and Meghan in a sense.
What we're told is that that Brooklyn and Nicola really would like to mend fences with David and Victoria, but the word toxic is being used to describe Victoria, actually. And that's, I don't think, as long as that is out there, I don't think it's going to work out.
I don't think so either, Charles. So we had obviously reported on them having, issues with the girlfriend, but I think we're actually getting to the crux of what's going on here. So essentially what we're being told is Nicola does not like how David and Victoria treat Brooklyn, which is obviously her husband. And basically this has been going on for a long time. So there was a ton of reports that Victoria and Nicola had a bunch of tension, especially around their wedding. We're now being told that was all true. Victoria was really trying to overstep. I mean, at one point we're even told during the first dance, she came in and basically cut in the middle and started dancing with Brooklyn, which obviously upset Victoria a lot, which I can imagine that's kind of a crazy move. But I think this has a lot more
upset Nicola, you mean?
Yes, upset Nicola, which it's a lot of names here, but
I know.
It's hard to follow this web. But I mean, the gist of it is, it seems like Nicola just isn't cool with Victoria or David and how they're treating them.
And vice versa. It seems like Victoria is not cool with Nicola. And so Nicola and Brooklyn have kind of been pushed out of the family in a sense.
Remember, we told you that they were the only family members not at David's 50th birthday last weekend.
And also, Brooklyn and Nicola canceled. They were supposed to go, I guess, to the Met Gala, canceled and went all the way over to London because they were hoping to hash it out with the family, which apparently never ended up happening because we're told for whatever reason, David and Victoria wouldn't meet with them. So,
well, I think we know what the reason is.
Maybe this is too obvious even to say, but it is really interesting because they live such different lives, David and Victoria, from everybody else. I mean, they're both
they're not
huge
like
stars, but they are. See, that's the thing. They are. That these are the family problems, that all normies have, where you have relatives and in-laws and such don't get along, and it just splinters the family. It is exactly like us.
I'm Nina from Dallas, Texas, and it's just crazy that Brooklyn and Nicola are calling David and Victoria toxic while simultaneously trying to amend their relationship. It's not offering like a peace offering. It's basically a PR stunt with a side of delusion, and it's just giving a Succession Beverly Hills edition.
Let me ask you one thing, see if you agree with me, that what makes this so much more difficult to mend is social media. That social media allows people to put it out there and the hard feelings don't go away because of it.
Because people can't take it back. Once it's out there, everyone knows.
That's right.
And it's like you're worried about judgment.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, we got to take a break.
All right, when we come back, a big change perhaps for the Diddy trial and what you will hear his lawyers saying as the trial proceeds. This all has to do with Mark Geragos and that meeting he had with the judge yesterday, where essentially he argued if you want Diddy to have a fair trial, his lawyers have to be allowed to speak.
In public.
In public about the case. That is different. We're going to get into that and whether it is actually fair for the prosecutors and for Diddy when we come back. Welcome back to TMZ Live. You just had to say that phrase. Six-pack of white women.
Boy, that triggered the judge.
Really
triggered the prosecutor.
This is, listen, this is on you.
No.
This was not my
Mark said
show.
it. I didn't say it.
I know, you didn't say it, but it was on your show. You co-host with him. Listen, if you say something on
as
this
long as
show.
you're going to go down the road.
If you say
Two Angry Men podcast.
Yes, on the Two Angry Men podcast, where Mark said that, as we told you earlier in the show, the judge called Mark in for a meeting yesterday where they discussed
cross the line, dude.
The things that he is saying in public and whether or not he's crossing the line.
He essentially threatened Mark with contempt if he would make a comment like that in the future.
But interestingly, the judge did not say, you cannot speak about this case.
Which is really interesting because there is a gag order in this case, and both sides have respected the gag order. Geragos' position, and it's unclear where he is. He represents Diddy. Does he represent him in this case? He's been consulting. So it seems like the judge is viewing him as somebody who's part of the defense team. But Geragos' position is the gag order should only work one way, that the Supreme Court has said prosecutors are gagged if they pollute the case and make it unfair for a defendant to get a fair trial. But the law does not say that the defense can't go out and speak, and defense lawyers often cave when a judge says it. But Geragos is saying that defense lawyers can't be gagged, and the judge seemed to agree with him.
For now, he is giving him, giving him a long leash, and we will see where it goes on the next episode of Two Angry Men. I get Mark's. Every time I say it, where's the money? Come on. But look, that's Mark's side of it. But prosecutors probably don't agree with that.
We will see.
Joining us right now to discuss it is a prosecutor, Deputy DA here in LA County, Kirsten Brown-Neal. Kirsten, welcome to TMZ Live.
Hey, Kirsten.
Hi, how are you guys?
We're good. We're so happy to have you on.
Happy to be here.
So what do you think? I mean, Geragos is saying, works one-way street, that, if the judge wants to gag, you gag prosecutors, but the defense always has a right to speak.
I think that's a pretty narrow view of the Shepard decision. The real crux of that case is about preserving the rights of a defendant and his due process rights. And the court uses really flowery language like a solemn process, serenity, calm of a courtroom. So, Harvey, leave it to you and Mark to disrupt the serenity and the calmness of the courtroom via your podcast. Have you thought about if you end up in an appellate record? Shout out to Two Angry Men. But I think Mark is reading it too narrowly. I think that the point is about preserving the rights of the defendant. And we can't assume that Mark's even pro-defense comments don't adversely impact Diddy. And that's what it's about.
But isn't that the defense's call on whether it benefits or not? I mean, maybe they misjudge, but they misjudge in court sometimes. Shouldn't it be the defense's right to say, well, this is going to benefit my client, and if it backfires, it's on them?
Well, particularly if Mark is even an unofficial member of the team, and that means he could be subject to ineffective assistance of counsel. So say Diddy is convicted, it goes up on appeal, and they start naming him and some of his conduct as being that of ineffective assistance of counsel that essentially violated his due process rights by trying the case in the media. This is a high-profile case. Mark is a nationally renowned defense attorney, so people are paying attention to what he has to say, and it can cut both ways, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think it's not just the judge who will be...
well, the gag order's not on me, just so you know.
But, hey, they're hanging on your words, too. And, these are dialed-in prosecutors. And I think that's kind of a message to Mark and the entire defense team. They're on it. and they're paying attention to what's happening in the courtroom and outside of the courtroom and protecting the integrity of their case.
So, Kirsten, you're saying that the prosecutors in Diddy's case could be looking at this as that Diddy, and I'm not going to say that Diddy is doing this, but they're guarding against the fact that if he loses, they don't want Diddy to have grounds for appeal. If the government wins and Diddy is convicted, they don't want anything that is not buttoned up here so that he would have a reason for an appeal.
That's correct. The prosecutor's job is to protect their conviction, to obtain the conviction and then to protect it and to make sure you are insulating yourself against any reversals on appeal.
That seems very paternal to say the prosecutors are actually protecting the defendant by saying the defense can't
Well, they're
speak.
protecting their conviction if they get it convicted,
but that's
and they
not,
don't want his
That's not a fair
attorneys.
trial issue. I mean, look, Kirsten, the first thing out of the gate in this case was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York holding a news conference. I mean, it would have been enough just to release the indictment. He holds a news conference.
Harvey, they always hold news conferences when they announce indictments of high-profile.
Kirsten, you know what I'm saying. That he doesn't have to hold a news conference, but he does it. He lays out everything.
Yeah, that's interesting because the U.S. Attorney's Office tends to be quite buttoned up and purposeful.
Yes.
But just by releasing what will ultimately be public record in of itself isn't creating the circus-like atmosphere that the Supreme Court was talking about in the Shepard case, and they're trying to guard against and protect, the due process rights of the defendant. So news conferences in of themselves aren't the problem, but
But it opens the door. It opens the door.
I mean, I do think there's a difference between the prosecutors fulfilling their obligation, because ultimately, remember, the prosecutors aren't representing these victims, they're representing the public. So keeping the public informed about proceedings.
Okay, but wait a minute. When you're saying keeping them informed, what they're doing is they're laying out the allegations, and then the issue is, does the defense have a right publicly to counter all of that?
I mean, laying out a charging document ultimately is going to be public record. So they're not saying anything in a news conference that the public isn't going to get access to eventually anyway. And this is a precarious line. I think it's a close call. I think the judge was appropriate to bring it to, or the prosecutor's appropriate to bring it to the judge's attention, and for the judge to say, hey, particularly before they start this trial in earnest with opening statements and testimony next week, everybody should probably dial it in and be very careful about the language you're using in the public square.
You're going to listen to the podcast?
Are you going to have me on the podcast?
Listen, I think you're great. I would love to have you on the podcast. You're great.
I am absolutely going to start listening because, listen, like, this podcast has now inserted itself in the trial. Let's see what happens next week.
I can't wait.
What's that? I have no idea. What's the name of that podcast again?
I think it's called Two Angry Men.
Right.
That's right.
And if one of the angry men isn't careful, it's going to be cut down to one angry man, which wouldn't be as good.
Kirsten, you see what I'm doing? We're getting listeners one person at a time. Got the judge yesterday. Now we got you.
It's brilliant. And in fact, go ahead and extend the invitation to the judge too. Maybe he should come on your podcast and
actually
talking about the case.
If the judge comes on, he can show more. Look, these are the kinds of comments you can make. Do it as a tutorial. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
Oh my God. Hey, it was really nice having you on, Kirsten.
A pleasure to be with you guys as well. Good luck. And I will be tuning in to Two Angry Men.
Wow, she is good.
You know how to do a plug and everything. I don't have to do it. Thank you, Kirsten.
Okay, we are going to take a break.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Kirsten. What are we doing?
I do think it's going to be interesting.
I have
Mark knows
no idea what he's going to say.
That he's on a
thin ice.
Yeah, and
let me tell you, the one thing I know about Garagos is he is not easily intimidated.
This is the only thing I want you to get from him on this podcast. Is he on Diddy's defense team or not?
He won't say. I cannot.
The judge asked him squarely yesterday, and he couldn't
answer. Okay, we're taking a break.
All right. When we come back, Blake Lively, her new movie is out, and some fans think they have found an Easter egg, one that is a pretty brutal jab at Justin Baldoni. Are they correct? Well, first it was Ryan Reynolds who was accused of making fun of Justin Baldoni in the Deadpool Wolverine movie.
He did. It's pretty obvious. It's obvious.
It does seem like there were some shots taken with the Nice Pool character. Well, now Blake Lively herself, some fans think that she has taken a shot at Justin Baldoni in her new movie, Another Simple Favor.
Count me among them.
So it all has to do with something that Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, said back in January on Megyn Kelly's podcast. We're going to play that clip for you, and then you're going to hear the scene, or see the scene, from Another Simple Favor with Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick.
And then the question, is it a shot?
Are you going to sue Blake Lively too?
Into oblivion, Megyn. Wait till you see this lawsuit.
Oh, and if you don't come, I'm gonna have to sue you into oblivion for using my name and likeness without my express written consent.
Come on. Oh, please. know this.
I don't know when they shot Another Simple Favor.
God. I mean, connect the dots.
Well, hold on. I mean, for the movie just came out. Did they really shoot? I mean, they could have added, by the way, her back was to the, so that could have been an audio pickup.
But she does turn, yeah, it could have been, but come on. Come on, of course. That's probably, you're probably right. You're probably right.
That they had shot it before and then
it was an audio pickup.
It's giving that because of the way that it's shot, like you guys said, that her back is towards it. But to be honest with you, if this is a jab, this is kind of lame. Like if you really went back on a movie because you heard a comment that was made in January.
But nobody says it that way. You don't say I'm suing you into oblivion.
That's what
Brian
I'm saying.
Friedman did.
This is kind of lame of her to go back and add this in.
No, honestly,
it's actually pretty clever.
I don't care. It's brilliant. I don't care if you're Team Baldoni or Team Lively. You have to admit that if that's what she did,
it's clever.
It is a great way to get people talking about your
movie because we're doing. Okay,
we wouldn't be talking about Another Simple Favor.
Would we be talking about Another Simple Thing right now?
Nope.
Would we? No.
You didn't even get the title right. That's how much you wouldn't be
What's
talking.
What's it called again?
Another Simple Favor.
Sorry. That's what I mean.
See?
I have no interest, but I'm really interested in this.
Hey, I'm Tori. I'm from Mississippi. And every time I hear her name, I get a sour taste in my mouth. Now, I wonder if they really had something going on. And if she's just too heartbroken and head over heels that she can't help but bring up this sour breakup. But I also wonder if there's any more jabs she's taking that they just haven't aired yet. Now that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, we got to see what movies are coming.
You said it would be fun to watch.
Exactly.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point. Okay, we got to take a break.
All right, when we come back, Ben Affleck and Britney Spears, what he is saying.
They have in common.
Yes, something that they have in common. And there's a lot of empathy pouring out of Mr. Affleck when we come back. Well, Ben Affleck and Britney Spears do have something in common, nothing to do with marriages, having several of them. It's not like we see Ben Affleck and Britney Spears hanging out or anything.
I don't think we ever have.
I don't think we ever have. Definitely not the same circles. But he has been watching her journey through show business and feels, it sounds like, a kinship with the things that she has had to deal with growing up in this business. Here's what he said about Britney when he was on Theo Von's podcast last weekend with Theo Von.
I really had a lot of empathy for Britney Spears because I remember that it seemed like it's not somebody that I knew or hung out with, but I just like everybody else. You see all this that comes through, but having had my own experiences myself, I knew like these are people who are following her around in a time where she may or may not have been having difficulty. I think there's this sense that if you see someone's picture all the time, they must want you to be seeing it, right? Which is not the case at all for me. I'm self-conscious. I don't really want you to be seeing that. As an actor, it's no good for you because I don't really want people, if they watch a movie, to be like, that's not him, because I saw him yesterday eating lunch and I know he's who he really is. It gets in the way of you being able to create like the illusion. It's really hard work to create the illusion that this person, like the character in The Accountant 2, for example, is a real person in a real circumstance. And in order to get the audience to care about it, to laugh, to find it exciting and empathize with the character, they have to suspend disbelief. That's harder if you're constantly being shown something else.
I got to disagree. I'm sorry.
This is very meta. This is very meta because I'm listening to what he's saying, but he's on a podcast saying, I don't want people to see me outside of my characters.
As they're seeing him outside the character. So, no, I get it. And
I know that's not what he was referring to, but it is part of it.
What you just said is a real point. But the other thing is, it's like there are plenty of actors that, I mean, Jack Nicholson went to the Lakers game all the time, but he could pull off
Ben
a role.
Affleck dates famous women. Jennifer Lopez, Ana de Armas. When you date these women, you're gonna be photographed. And so I don't understand how he thinks that he can just like hide from the cameras and not be photographed.
That's insulting to Ben to say that we wouldn't want to see him unless he was with these
and honestly,
women. I mean, I think people care about Ben Affleck outside of the people he's dating.
Do they though?
Or married to.
But honestly, Charles, he wasn't Daredevil. Do you really want to think like people of your acting skills like that? Like some of the roles that he's chose, you don't want to like think that that's like his like role.
Why are you taking shots at? Anyway,
because
apologies
so
to Theo
annoying.
Von.
It's
I
like,
got the title
woe
of his
me.
podcast wrong. It's This Past Weekend with Theo Von.
Hello, I'm Lisa from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. It's nice to see Ben Affleck stick up for Britney Spears. I can only imagine how much pressure it would be to have people watching your every move, recording it, analyzing it, and making everything public, especially and fame comes to someone so young like it did with Britney. It must be really difficult to handle.
And Justin Bieber just raised that issue several times.
Yes.
What else do you guys want to talk about?
Hey, I'm Christiana. I'm from Atlanta, and I'll be covering the Diddy trial. So right now, it's more of a media circus than an actual trial. The judge is making jokes about a podcast. You have social media analyzing the jury as if they're a new Bravo cast. I don't think he'll ever see the light of day, but he does deserve a fair trial. And right now, it's a trial by public perception.
Well, by the way,
don't you do it? Don't you do it?
I mean, it's a podcast. Are you into the trial?
Yes, I am.
Wondering if are you going to be listening to Two Angry Men because you got to see what.
I'm not. Definitely not listening to that.
Oh, come on.
Oh, wow.
I mean, come on.
No,
I was betting 1,000 until you.
Yeah, well, you know.
Oh, God. Okay, we're going to take a break.
All right, when we come back, Nicole Scherzinger, a huge hit on Broadway. We've been talking about that, and maybe that's why she's pulling up stakes in L.A. We're going to show you the fabulous home she is now selling. Nicole Scherzinger had enough of, or at least the house that she has in LA. I don't know if she's going to leave LA altogether.
She's a big Broadway star now.
Yeah, killing it in Sunset Boulevard.
I know where that home is.
So she is listing,
I know where that home is.
She had actually listed the home.
I didn't know that was a home.
Wow, look at see the
view. It's got
wow.
a jet. This has got a jetliner view.
Oh,
I know where this
sound
home
like a realtor. Oh, it's got jetliner views.
No, it does. Look at it. Those are jetliner views. And it goes from
your jetliner shouldn't be flying that low.
Downtown LA to Catalina.
She had listed it last year for 6.7 and it has now been discounted to 6.5 million.
Wow, it's pretty.
They're in the market.
It is, yeah. I guess this shows the real estate market ain't as vibrant as it used to be.
No.
Wow, that
view, look at that. Wow.
That is
okay, that's
up in that's up in the Hollywood Hills right above the Sunset Strip. And it is I've passed that house a million times. In fact, I almost crashed into that house once because I almost missed the turn. So you're welcome. You're welcome, Nicole.
You need this?
Two Angry Men podcast.
A plug.
Two Angry Men podcast.
You don't need to speak into it. My point was this guy's shameless plug-in whole show.
We'll see you tomorrow.